everybody. It is Brandon Foster, author of Confident AF, Unleash Your Inner Badass, and mindset expert for the top 1%. And today I am here with my incredible badass, Heather Schramm, who's going to share her experience inside of the Born to Slay Mastermind. She is a slayer, as we like to call them. How you doing today, Heather?
Wonderful. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. So why don't we start off with just like, who the hell are you? So like, where are you from and what's your business, boo?
So I live in Medina, Ohio. It's near Akron, so everybody knows where that is now that we have LeBron. And I am the owner of Infinite Moments Travel. So I've had my travel business for a year. My little notification came out the other day of having it for a year. So
Yay! Congratulations. That's fantastic. So why don't you tell everybody what was going on in your business and inside of your mindset that led you to join Born to Slay?
So it's really just more been about starting off on the right foot. Like there's just been dominoes that have fallen and everything just kind of happened when it was supposed to. I started my business and I was in a different program where I met Brandon, and he helped significantly in that program. And it was just like small bites because at the time it's so overwhelming to start your business and to get all the dominoes in place correctly, that it was just enough to make sure that I was continuing to progress in the right kind of mindset. But then after everything that was like that practical piece, like you have to do X, Y, and Z, it was put in place. It was more about just the belief in myself and how to set myself up for success in more of like the inner me and not like all the things that I can control. And so then I started working with you in a much larger capacity with Born to Slay, and the intentionality of what I was doing changed. And there was just this thing that happened where I gained so much more confidence in myself once I knew how to just set my day up for success, and that it was more about me and what I was doing and not necessarily like, putting things out into the universe for other people to come to me. It was just me. Like if I'm sitting in a room all by myself, I'm okay.
Yes, I love all those things. I also love the fact that when we had our deep dive call, you really weren't stuck. Some people think that you have to be stuck to do mindset, which is crazy. Like, I don't feel like any NFL pro player is like, I'm going to wait until I'm stuck and like my stats are terrible to get a coach. Like, that makes zero sense. Like, you don't have to wait to that. And one of the things that I love that you mentioned is like, no, like I was progressing. I was just like, I need to take all of this to a whole new level. And I know I got to change how I think about myself to take it to a new level now that I have a lot of practical tools and resources at my disposal to actually use. So I love that. What were some of your biggest wins inside of Born to Slay?
Um, so I doubled the size of my team, and that was big. And so that was really just good for me. And the part of that was good was the clarity that came with it, and just understanding what exactly my goals were, not just short-term goals, but like long-term goals for my business. And what kind of person I wanted to be in all of that. Because I think at the time it was just more about, being a business owner and growing my business. But when I was in the program, gaining the clarity of like, this is the kind of environment that I want to have with agents in my business and my team. And this is the kind of environment I want to drive. And so that's the type of person that I want to hire, because it adds to that positive environment that I was trying to foster. So the clarity was pretty big for me of just understanding exactly what I want. And oddly enough, just like those little tiny pieces that you do every single day that seem like they're not actually doing anything. But those have compounded significantly already in some of the things that have happened with just my team. So
Like what? Tell me. What are the small things that have
Um,
compounded?
One of the things that I started doing with my team is before I was doing email marketing for my clients, but I started doing basically email marketing, but for my team. So I send my team update emails and encouragement emails and mindset things in our Facebook group. And I wasn't really doing that before because I was still in the mindset of growing my business. And I looked at it as growing clients instead of growing a good, positive working environment for my team. And I kind of shifted into like, this really matters. And it's made a big difference of just helping them kind of with their mindset and what their goals are. And it's such a small thing, but it's something that you just don't really think about doing. It takes 10 minutes a week for me to do those things for them. And I think like over time, it has really fostered a good, like more people arrive to the live calls that we have for training. We have a group chat where I just love kind of sitting back and watching it sometimes because I always think I have to be the one to respond. And instead now like they respond to each other. And I'm like, oh, okay, I missed that message, but everybody else got it. So I'm good. So that's just, one of those things that I really like is shifting from thinking that I have to do it all by myself to having a team that I trust around me.
I love all those things. I'm curious, how has some of the mindset turned into practical wins that maybe you didn't see or you didn't expect? I have one personally that I'm thinking about, but like, I'm just curious what your perspective is,
One
and
of
then maybe
mine?
I'll share mine. Yeah.
Oh, I want to know what that is. Okay. So, really, I love that you said practical because for me, I am an overly practical kind of person. And I think like when you do something like start your own business and you're looking at leaving your profession that you've had for 16 years to just pour into your business, it's not practical at all. I had to let go of that. I had to let go of what I thought was practical because what I am doing right now is bigger than practicality.
I love that. That's amazing. So the win that I'm thinking of, which I thought was so great, was you won. Well, actually, a couple things. One, you got that $500
Yeah.
tip in the mail for your service, which was fantastic, and that was unexpected.
Thanks.
The other big practical piece that I feel like people miss the energetics and how mindset incorporates this stuff because you have to open up to those possibilities is the car dealership and the head of marketing in the car dealership. Can you tell them that story and what happened?
Yeah, it's just a friend of the family that he owns a dealership and we were just talking at like a family event and he's like, oh yeah, anytime you want to come in and pick my brain. And I'm like, yeah, yes, absolutely. I want to do that. Yes. And it was just those things that came so kind of organically through life events that I already had. And it was more about talking about it, that talking about my business and telling people about it and kind of, tooting my own horn a little bit of like what I'm doing because I'm not that type of person. I just kind of like move in silence all the time. And when I really started talking about it, things started coming in. And so this was one of those situations where I went in and I had a meeting, and this person is somebody I truly respect. He has built his businesses from the ground up. He comes from a similar background than I do. So, I don't really come from like money or education even in my family. There wasn't a lot of high school diplomas and definitely no like college degrees to be had there. And when I met with him, I had been I had been in business for about 6 months, like launched my business, announced it to the world, had a website, and I went in and I had all of my things. I had my website, I had some marketing materials, I had my business cards, and I just wanted kind of feedback on things like the aesthetics of what I had, the flow of my website, the kinds of marketing materials I had invested in already. And when I went in and met with him and I laid everything out and I showed him the website, he said, I kind of feel a little useless because you're way further ahead than you should be right now. Like other people in your position are not done with this. You're like at a point where I've seen people have been in business for like a year and a half to 2 years, and you're there in 6 months. And he said, I expect this from you, but then I didn't expect this from you. He said, because I've known you for a very long time, and I know that you are this kind of person. You're very, just persistent, and, you persevere. But I really just didn't know all this, because this is, a different wheelhouse for you. And it was just one of the highest compliments I think I've ever received from somebody, because it was just truly genuine. It wasn't like he was saying anything to fluff my ego. It was a genuine, wonderful surprise to him that I had achieved what I had in such a short amount of time.
I love it. And how's the mindset impacted your sales, Boo?
Well, to be honest, I think what has impacted them more is the mindset to grow my team and not myself, because I'm steady, but I have been able to help my team grow. And so I've given, leads that come in through the website to other people on my team, and they've closed the sale in 3 days. Like that for me is bigger than building my business, because I have a lot of belief in myself that I can maintain no matter what. For me, the biggest piece was actually helping other people and creating that environment and trusting them to continue growing with our business. And that was bigger for me, I think, because for me, like I said, I mean, I've been doing really well this year. And so just to kind of give you an idea, like since I started and I met you and the mindset piece, my sales this year are about 4 times what they were my first year by myself.
Wow.
So then that's me alone. And then, add into that I have a team that has been working, and it's just been wonderful to watch them grow. And for me to know that I can say, hey, whatever person on my team, I have a couple of things that came into the office. I don't have time to get to them. Is there any way that you can get in touch with this client? Because I like to get back within 24 hours. And them say, yes, I can do that right now. And they take care of it, and the sale gets taken care of. And it's that piece of like not having to do everything by myself, and that I do have people I can trust.
I love that. And I also want to say your sales are not your sales anymore. Like your agency sales are actually your sales, right? And you have done that beautiful transition. I'm not sure you've articulated it fully yet, but you've done that transition, or you are in the middle of that big transition, that your number one clients is actually your team, and your number two is the actual clients that you've been serving. So that's amazing. Okay. Blah, blah, blah business. Now, one of the things that we talk about a lot is that this container does not just impact your business. It impacts your personal life, your personal relationships. I love to call this the ripple effect. And I had no idea when God gave me the idea to work with him to create this, that it would do this in people's lives. But now that I know it's a thing, I got to ask about it. So what was the ripple effect in your personal life and with your family from taking this course?
Couple things. So one, God was a big piece for me, because we've talked about it a little bit, and you do a really good job of kind of separating for people who aren't quite there with a relationship with God yet, but still realizing that things happen, and there's still a law of the universe. And for me, I had a hard time with God, and just my religious background is not super strong, but I know that he's also been there my entire life. So once I started opening up to watching things around me and being ready to accept the gifts that were coming my way, it made a huge impact. I did receive that tip. That was huge. And then in addition to that, I ended up, I was at the hospital, which is kind of a long story, but I was at the hospital, and I was there with my mom, and this lady was in the room with my mom when I walked in. And my mom later told me that the lady had been in the room 4 times, but she had to keep leaving because like a nurse walked in, or a doctor walked in, or like somebody else walked in. And she walked in, and then I walked in right after her. So she hadn't introduced herself yet. So she introduced herself, and her name was the same name as my mom's, which is uncommon. Their name is Elaine. And then we started talking to her, and she started talking about her family. Her granddaughter's name is the same as same as my daughter's name, which is an uncommon name. It's Katerina. And she was there because she was the faith person from the hospital. So she came to the room to pray with us. And it was such a powerful experience. So she came in and she prayed with us, and I just cried the whole time. And after she left, my mom and I were talking, and my mom said, "It's been a long time since you prayed." And I said, "Yes, it has." And she said, that was for you. She was for you. She wasn't here for me. She was here for you." And she said, "I know she was here for you." And that's when she told me she had come back 4 times. And she said you were supposed to be here for it. That's why she kept getting interrupted. And it was very powerful for me. So that's a big piece for me, is just returning to having faithfulness in God, and that God will take care of me, and that He actually has taken care of me, but I'm stubborn, and I have led such a life that I feel like I've had to overcome all the time, that I feel like He wasn't there for me, but that was actually, I didn't do that by myself. So that was a big piece for me. And the other piece for me was realizing that it's not all or nothing when it comes to boundaries, because boundaries for my childhood were like all or nothing. It was like boundaries were kept because they were very intentional of, you have to not, like, have a relationship with this person or that person because of the toxicity. But as I got older, I didn't know how to set smaller boundaries of, like, okay, I love this person dearly, but I need boundaries with them because they get into my head, and they say things out of love, but they say things that are affecting me in a negative way. And
Mm.
so I set small boundaries where it didn't really impact my relationship with the people around me, but it allowed me to grow my business to the point where I don't have to even have the same boundaries with them anymore, because they've seen what has happened. And so some of that, like, doubt that they had, or that they were putting in me, is gone. And so that was one thing that really, really helped. And that was actually on a call that I had with you. And you said, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, just set a timer, like, in your head of, I'm going to give this person 10 minutes of my time, because after 10 minutes is when things start going in that direction where the conversation starts affecting me in a negative way. And so you still have that positive relationship, and you continue to grow a little bit of tolerance along the way.
I love that. Speaking of one-on-ones, that born to slay is the only way that you can pretty much work with me.
Mhm.
So what is that like? Because a lot of people don't know what that's like. They might have had a group coaching call with me, or they've seen, a podcast or like a live inside the freebie Facebook group. But what is that like to have me personally one-on-one time?
So I experienced this with one-on-one time, but then also group calls. So I'll say this. I think there's like a natural progression, I think, that happens of, like, spending the first phone call just in tears, like, all the realization of all the things that you want to overcome. And then you end up on phone calls like this, where it's just all smiles, happy. Let me tell you about all these wonderful things, that are happening, that are dominoing, that are coming from every direction. The love that comes in from all the directions, from all the people, and the compliments that pour in. And it just has a lot to do with being ready to accept it, and the intentionality of what I'm doing every day, and waking up with the mindset of sending positive things out into the world, and just positive things come back in waves, and it just feels amazing. And it really is just one of those things of, like, getting in your own head, and changing that was big. So at the beginning, when I had calls with you, I was like, I don't know about this. Like, I just spent an hour crying with Brandon on Zoom. Like, it was ugly crying too. It wasn't even pretty. And then, but I think every time I walked away from one of those one-on-one calls, I had like a million things running through my head of like, wow, I didn't know that this was impacting me in this way, or that that was impacting me in this way. And once you get a little bit of clarity on how to change specific parts and just the small pieces of relationships, it helps significantly. And then just in time, like the second phone call comes and you're like, okay, I've got X, Y, and Z under control. Let's move on, you know? And just step for most of it, like mindset is something that I think a lot of people do practice, but the hardest piece is having a perspective of somebody that's not in it. And that happens all the time with me with other people where they'll say something and then I say something very profound to them, but for me it seems very, like obvious. And it's more about not being the one that's stuck in it and having somebody that you can rely on to help you trudge through and say like, okay, here's what's going on. Because I'm not in it, I could see the big picture and I could see exactly all the things that are happening in your life. And when you're the one doing it, I don't think it's as easy. I think like having a mindset coach is essential for people who just really, instead of figuring it out over 6 months, it's like, here's a couple phone calls and now like you're good. Because otherwise that's what happens. Like you just get so stuck in your own head that, you don't make progress forward because you don't see the small pieces that you're missing.
I love that. Where do you think you would be if you hadn't done it?
I don't think that I would have as much faith and trust in my team because I have, to a detriment of myself, been the type of person that just I will do it myself. Like I have that like
Mm.
attitude of, oh, um, I'll just take care of it myself so that way I know it gets done.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you can build a business on. Like I can build my own clients on that, right? That's not a business. That's just me working by myself.
Bill, you're preaching to the choir.
So that was really big for me. Just being able to say like, no, these are the things that have to happen, and with love, because I'm not always going to give a lead to somebody and they're not always going to close it. And so I have to realize like, yes, I would love for everybody to have 100% closing rate, but you can't give your, my travel agents leads and expect that they're going to have 100% closing rate and have that expectation of them. It's more about like, I want to do this for you because this can help you grow also. And because I also need, the help. But I did it in a way where I did it because I wanted to see them succeed and not because I wanted somebody to do work that made me successful.
I love that. So what'd you say to anybody, Heather Boo, who is thinking about doing this? Maybe they're on their fence. Maybe they just don't know if it's right for them. What would you say?
Well, if it's any indication, I am still working with Brandon on a personal level. So I extended into, some additional time. So if that speaks anything, that speaks volumes. It's just saying like, oh, this was so good that I am still doing it after I completed the Board to Slay containers. But I go back and I look through them, and every time you go through it again, you see it with fresh eyes. And it's one of those things that you constantly have to do. You have to pay attention to your mindset. And it is, for me, it has been more than the practical pieces, because the practical pieces are things I can look up on the internet, like you can research things, you can Google things, but that mindset, that belief in yourself, that faith in yourself, it's not the same thing.
Yay! I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Slayer Heather. I appreciate it so much. And I cannot wait, because at some point I'll have to do like where are they now? Like, and watch how all the stuff that you've been working on really stacks over the next several years for your business. I'm super excited about that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you later.